What's up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with another video. This time we're going to take a look at recent sales prices for vintage mint on card Star Wars action figures. Mainly Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, Ewoks, Droids, later card backs. I've only got, I think, one early card back, and the rest is ESB all the way through the Droids and Ewoks lines. But pretty surprising prices, as you'd expect. Some good deals and some not so good deals. But for the most part, I was actually pretty surprised on the lower end versus our recent video where we had some loose graded figures that all came in a lot higher than I expected. Before I dig in any further, one quick reminder, and a number of subscribers have taken advantage of this lately. If you have a collection to sell, whether it's mint on cards like we're covering in this video, loose action figures, loose graded, anything vintage, Kenner Star Wars or Palatoy, things like that, play sets, you can reach out to me by email, actionfiguregrader@gmail.com. And I also, by the way, do have a collector/buyer that's interested in Star Wars Legos. So if you have a Star Wars Lego collection to sell, you can also reach out to me by email. All right, let's dig in. Let's see. I think this is the only early card back I got. And, you know, maybe it's just me, but does the hang tab on this one look different? I can't tell if this is a legit one or not. I just don't know these early card backs that well. But it's an R2-D2, and it's got the, it's a 12 back, and it looks legit from the back. It's just something about that, the hanger tab. And I could be completely wrong on this, but it's just raised some eyebrows because it didn't look right to me. And in all fairness, I did not look at it closely versus some images online, but I just don't know much about 12 backs, and for some reason, there's something about that hang tab that looks a little off to me, but maybe I'm wrong. And clearly the market seems to think it's a legit example of the R2-D2 on a 12 back. Beautiful crystal clear blister. Pretty great shape overall, but it's sold for $985. So again, who knows, but for those of you that are experts on these 12 backs, I'd be curious as to what you think on it. Everything on the back looks pretty legitimate, and it did look to be in really good shape. But for an early 12 back in this kind of condition, I would think it would go for more money than this. But anyway, $985 took that one home. Let's dig into the Empire Strikes Back before we start digging into Return of the Jedis. And the first one is a 41 back A Lobot, clear blister, debut card. It was graded AFA 80, 80, 85, 80 were the sub scores. Really nice looking example. It did have a little bit of a scuffing or crease around the hang tab on this one, but beautiful blister on that one. Really great shape. No price stickers, unpunched. And that one was listed for $450. The best offer that was accepted was $400, which I thought was a great buy for the debut card for Lobot. But beautiful example, $400 plus $1,560 took that one home. Next up, we got a 41 back E Hoth Stormtrooper. And this one did have a yellowed blister, but it was in pretty great shape overall. I mean, the card back looked to be in really good shape. Here is the back of it. It looked like it had a little bit of scuffing or something going on with the hang tab there, but light edge wear here and there would probably grade out at a 75 plus is my guess. You can see the Smile Factory there for this 41 back E. And this one was listed for $400. The best offer that was accepted on this one was $325. So again, I know it had a yellowed blister, but pretty great shape overall. I think that was worth every penny of $325 for the Hoth Stormtrooper. Next up was an Ugnaught. This one also was on the 41 back E, unpunched, clear blister, and it did have a price sticker on about the middle on the left-hand side there. That one sold for $360 in an auction. 29 bids on that one plus $560 shipping. But again, probably if I had to guess on the grade on this one, probably a 75 plus or maybe an 80 grade. It did have kind of it looked like a soft bend in the upper left-hand corner. It could just be shadows, but it does look like a kind of a soft bend there. But overall, great shape for that 41 back E Ugnaught. Next up was a 47 back clear blister Luke Skywalker. This is the free 4-lam offer. Clear blister, I've got a slightly yellowed blister in the same grade. This one was 80, 85, 80. This one was like a partially unpunched example. And this is a tough one to find with a clear blister. So I knew it would sell for quite a bit of money. It sold for $810 plus $29 shipping. I think that price was actually pretty fair. I picked one up at Hakes last year that, again, had it was very slightly yellowed and I paid about $600 for mine, $640, somewhere in that ballpark. I don't remember the exact number, but this one sold for about $840. And I think for a clear blister, again, it's tough to find this one with a clear blister, so I think it's worth every penny. This I thought was a really good buy. This is the 47 back IG-88, unpunched with a price sticker in the upper right. It did have some slight edge wear to it, a pretty pronounced crease going from the bottom of the card through that 4-line offer, but probably an overall 75 grade. It did have a ding also at the upper end of the blister there, as you can see right here. Tough to see the ding, but overall pretty great shape. I think it's a 75 plus, somewhere in that ballpark. And $370, I think that's a great price. I mean, I've seen higher grade examples go for at least double this price, and it had a crystal clear blister, and again, it was unpunched. So I think that was worth every penny of $370. Next up was Zuckuss on the 48 back A, I believe. And again, it was a clear blister. Card back was in great shape, just light edge wear here and there. It did have a price sticker, and it was unpunched again. That one sold for $665, which I think that's kind of right in line with market. The offerless 48 back Zuckuss, for whatever reason, they always seem to command big money, and this one was no exception. $665 on 37 bids. That one ended on February 26th. This is one that confused me a little bit. And again, I don't know my R2-D2 card backs as to why some are more expensive than others, but this is the 48 back A R2-D2 sensor scope. And admittedly, it was graded 85, but it was a yellowed blister. 85, straight 85s for the subscores. But again, a yellowed blister, unpunched. And this one sold for big money. It sold for $1,975. So my only thinking is that this was right around when I think it was the 41 back E was the last card that had the straight solid dome R2-D2. So this is the 48A. Again, yellowed blister and I freely admit it's an 85, but it is a yellowed blister, and it sold for almost $2,000. So again, it must just be one of those card backs, offerless ESBs for the sensor scope R2-D2 that commands big money. But that was a big shocker to me because, again, I don't know which ones are which. Some of these ESB card backs for R2-D2 versus R2-D2 sensor scope, they can command big dollars, and apparently that's one of them. Next up was the free Revenge of the Jedi 48 back 4-LOM clear blister, and it did have some wear around the hang tab there, as you can see, a little tear. I did have the price sticker, but nice crystal clear blister. That one sold for $809, and again, that's not too far off of market value. That one just tends to go for big money, but $809, $10 shipping. This is like the poor man's debut card for 4-LOM. As someone corrected me earlier on, there was an earlier 48 back 4-LOM that's his actual debut card, but there's not many examples out there. So most people will revert to this one as the poor man's version. It's kind of like with Bosk with the 32 back A versus the 32 back B. Or excuse me, is it the 31 back A versus the 32 back B? The 31A is like super expensive, multi-$1,000s, but most of us who don't have that kind of money, we revert to the 32 back B as the poor man's debut card for Bosk. So similar situation for 4-LOM, but $809 took that one home. Now let's dig into some return of the Jedi card backs. This is the Lily Letty made in Mexico for the U.S. market. So this is obviously why the Gamorrean Guard has a clear blister on this. It did have quite a bit of creasing around the hang tab there, but a beautiful foreign card back, and the price was pretty good, $113.50. We documented one on the channel that was around $250 that was in better shape, so I think this price was more than fair for one with some pretty obvious creasing to the card back. This was the Kenner Canada Leia Combat Poncho. It looks like it's a clear blister, but it could be just light yellowing on there, which is a common problem with that one. But pretty great shape overall, unpunched. And again, it's the Kenner Canada with the La Guerre des Étoiles on the back of the card. $286 took that one home plus $10 shipping. I thought that was a great price. I've seen it sell for $400 to $450 graded, so I think that was a great deal. Here was a Kenner Canada Wicket, and this one had a yellowed blister, very heavily yellowed. It was unpunched though, and again for a foreign card back, I thought that was a great price, $224.72 plus $10 shipping. So again, you got to be very careful with these heavily yellowed blisters because they can crack. They can and will crack on you in shipping. But assuming it made it to the buyer safely, I thought that was a great buy. $225 or so took that one home. Next up is Paplu. This was on the 79 back Return of the Jedi with the free Anakin offer. Again, this is a Lily Letty made for the U.S. market. There was also a Kenner Canada version for this Paploo. This one had the Toys R Us price sticker and was punched, and that one sold for $170.50. I thought that was a really great price for this one. Usually they sell for $250 to $300, so maybe I'm missing something. It did have a little card wave to it, but probably a 75 plus or maybe even a low 80 if you're lucky, but pretty good price for a Lily Letty 79 back. I mean, we documented a Paploo that was UKG loose graded 80% that sold for $500. And if you remember in that video, I can't remember if it's aired yet, I said, hey, you might be able to get mint on card for less than that. And this is an example of that. This one sold for $170 plus $10 shipping, whereas that UKG loose graded Paploo sold for over double that price. So this was a much better buy, in my opinion. Next up, we've got the Jawa on a 77 back, and this one had the Boba Fett free coin offer. Tougher to find this one. It did have a slightly yellowed blister. This was an auction with Toy Scout. We've talked about this seller in the past. I've never bought from this seller, but I have heard from a number of subscribers that they've been very happy with their purchases from this seller. $325 on 21 bids took that one home. Again, if that had been a clear blister, I think you could probably put $450 to $550 pretty easily for that Jawa, but tough to find that coin offer. Here's another one with very light yellowing. We just documented at the last Hakes auction one of these that was ungraded that sold for $600 plus. I don't remember the exact number, but it was $600 or $700. Now, the blister on this one did have a lot of dings on it, and that's why I stayed away from this one. This is one I'd like to pick up eventually. I don't know what it is. I like that coin offer on there, but I think the dings held the price back on this one. But still, $283, that's less than half of what the other one sold for. And, you know, again, it's probably at best a 70 plus, 75 grade. Those dings are pretty pronounced there on the blister, and that's why the price stayed where it did. Next up is the very desirable Boba Fett with the Boba Fett coin offer. So you knew this one would sell for good money. This one sold for $1,125. It did have a pretty pronounced ding on that blister. Not cracked, though. So I think that's a good buy, though. I mean, we talk about Return of the Jedi Boba Fett's. This is the Taiwan Fett as well, which is always very desirable. But $11.25 for that one. I think that was a really great price. Congratulations, whoever got that. I mean, that's well below market, in my opinion, even with the dings on that blister. Next up, we've got some Ewoks and then some Droids figures. This one was the Logray. I believe this is a made in Mexico. Let me see here. This one is... It doesn't say on there. Yeah, it is. In the lower right-hand corner, it's hard to read because it's blurry, but it says figure made in Mexico. So this is a Lily Letty Ewoks Logray, and that's usually pretty expensive. But this one sold for less than I expected. This one sold for $202.49. I think it had a crease. Yeah, it had kind of a crease or something going on at the top of the card back, like a scratch on the card. So that one was probably why it sold so cheap. Again, in high grade, you're going to be paying quite a bit of more money for it. AFA examples can set you back $600 plus. So given the card defects on this one, it sold for quite a bit less, $202. But I think that's a good buy, though. Next up here is an AFA 75 Logray, and that one sold for $307. So again, I think that's a really good buy, just given that it was already graded. Again, it's a Lily Letty card back, 75, 85, 85. So 285 subscores for this one, and it still only sold for $307. Versus this one that sold for $202 that was ungraded. So I think this one was probably the better buy, in my opinion. Same seller, too. Next up was another graded Ewoks figure. This is King Gornish with a yellowed blister, but AFA 85. The subscores were 85, 85, 90. It was unpunched, and that one sold for $362 plus $11.25 shipping. I think that's a pretty good buy as well. Next up was... the Dulux Shaman, and this one was graded 75 with a clear blister. It looks like it's started to yellow, though. Maybe not. I don't know. It looks a little bit yellowed since grading. So 75, 80, 90 were the subscores on that one. That one still sold for $222 plus $11.25 shipping. Another good buy. That one was punched with no price sticker. Next up was an unpunched Dulux Scout. 85, 85, 90 were the subscores on that one. Archival case, and again, this one had yellowed since grading. You can see that that blister has got some very light yellowing since grading on that one. So that one held the price back a little bit, but still sold for a pretty good price, $411 plus $11.25 shipping. Next up was Lady Gornish, AFA 75 with a yellowed blister, 70, 80, 90 were the subscores. So those subscores were all over the place. 70, 80, and 90 for an overall 75 excellent plus. Archival case, just light yellowing. I think the card back colors, the artwork, kind of make the blister not look as bad with the yellowing for this one. But pretty cool looking figure. That one sold for $225 plus $11.25 shipping. So pretty good deals there. Jord Dusat, this was an AFA 80 yellowed blister. This one is the Canada version. La Guerre des Étoiles with an unpunched card. Pretty cool looking card there. 80, 85, 80 were the subscores on this one. So anyway, a nice foreign card back, and that one sold for $231.50. Another pretty good deal there. So a lot of these droids and Ewoks figures with yellowed blisters, even graded, sold for some pretty attractive prices. This one was only an AFA 60, but this is Kia Mall, again on a Kenner Canada card back. 60, 80, 80 were the subscores. So two high subscores, but the card had some pretty pronounced litho tears and some damage, things like that. But that one sold for $202.49. I think we documented a clear blister high-grade Kia Mall on this same card back that was unpunched that sold for over double that price. And it was not graded, if memory serves, but it was unpunched and it was in better condition. And it sold for, I think it was around $400. And it also had a clear blister, if memory serves. So $202.49 for an already graded. Admittedly, it was only an AFA 60. But again, pretty good prices overall. Not too many surprises other than that that R2-D2. Let's see if we can find it. Yeah, this R2-D2 was probably the biggest surprise on the upper end of the scale. Yellowed 48 back A that sold for almost $2,000. So that is a big number to me. But again, it all comes down to the Kellerman matrix and how many of these are out there. So my gut tells me that this one must be a pretty rare example. Hard to find an offerless ESB sensor scope R2-D2 apparently, because this one sold for an eye-popping price. So anyway, thank you so much again for watching, and I'll be back soon.